The morning sun painted the community hall in golden light as guests arrived in their finest attire. White lilies adorned every corner, and the photographer's camera flashed continuously, capturing what everyone believed would be the perfect day. This wasn't just any wedding. This was the union of Sarah Martinez, beloved nurse at the local clinic, and James Chen, the town's respected architect. The hall buzzed with excitement. Women adjusted their elaborate hats while men straightened their ties. Children fidgeted in their seats, already bored by the formality. At the front, James stood tall in his navy suit, his hands clasped nervously as he waited for his bride. When Sarah finally appeared at the entrance, a collective gasp filled the room. She looked stunning in her ivory gown, her makeup flawless, her smile radiant. But it was her hair that caught everyone's attention. An elaborate updo crowned with delicate flowers and crystals that sparkled under the lights. The ceremony proceeded smoothly. The officiant's voice echoed through the hall, warm and ceremonial. "Do you, Sarah Martinez, take James Chen to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Sarah's smile widened. Her lips parted to say those two precious words everyone was waiting for. But before sound could leave her mouth, chaos erupted. The hall doors burst open with a deafening bang. A woman stumbled inside, her clothes dusty and torn, her feet bare, her hair wild and tangled. She looked like she'd walked through a storm. "Stop!" she screamed, her voice cracking with emotion. "Remove the bride's hair. The truth is hidden underneath." The microphone slipped from the officiant's hands, crashing to the floor with a sharp thud. Every head turned. Whispers spread like wildfire through the crowd. "Who is that woman? Is she drunk? Did she just say to remove her hair?" The disheveled woman staggered forward, her finger trembling as she pointed directly at Sarah. "You can lie to everyone here," she said, her voice breaking. "But you can't lie to me. Remove it. Now." Sarah's face twisted with a mixture of fear and anger. "Who are you?" she snapped, her hand instinctively flying to her head. "What nonsense are you talking about?" James stepped forward, confusion etched across his face. "Ma'am, I think you've made a mistake." "No mistake," the woman interrupted. "Ask her about the scars. Ask her about the initials carved into her scalp." The hall erupted into shocked murmurs. Sarah's mother jumped from her seat in the front row. "Security! Remove this mad woman immediately." But the stranger stood her ground, tears streaming down her face. "My name is Maria Garcia," she announced to the stunned crowd. "And I'm here to tell you all the truth about the woman standing at that altar." Sarah's legs wobbled. The color drained from her face. For a brief moment, her confident facade cracked, revealing something raw underneath. Guilt, fear, or perhaps both. Maria took another step forward. 3 years ago, Sarah told everyone I disappeared. That I went missing without a trace. The whole town searched for me. You all prayed for me." Her voice grew stronger. "But Sarah knows exactly what happened to me that night by the lake. And the proof is hidden under that beautiful hairpiece she's wearing." The guests sat frozen, caught between disbelief and morbid curiosity. James looked from Maria to Sarah, his expression pleading for answers. Sarah's hands trembled as she clutched her hair tighter. "This is insane," she whispered. "James, she's clearly disturbed. Let's continue." "Then remove it," Maria challenged. "If I'm lying, if I'm crazy, prove it. Remove your hair and show everyone your scalp." The silence that followed was deafening. Sarah's eyes darted around the room, searching for an escape that didn't exist. Her breathing became rapid and shallow. "Sarah," James said softly, his voice filled with uncertainty. "What's she talking about?" Before Sarah could respond, her knees buckled. She swayed dangerously, her carefully constructed world collapsing around her. As she fell, Maria's words echoed through the hall. "The truth is underneath. It always has been." So, dear viewers, what secret lies beneath Sarah's elaborate hairpiece? What really happened to Maria Garcia 3 years ago? Subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell because this story is just beginning, and what comes next will leave you absolutely speechless. Don't miss. To understand how we arrived at this shocking moment, we need to travel back in time. Back to when Sara Martinez and Maria Garcia were just two sisters sharing a small apartment above their mother's bakery in the heart of town. Maria was the older sister by 3 years, and she lit up every room she entered. Tall, confident, and charismatic, she had a way of making everyone feel important. She worked as a real estate agent and was quickly becoming one of the most successful in the area. People said she could sell snow to someone living in the Arctic. "I'm going to own my own agency one day," Maria would declare, her eyes sparkling with ambition. "And I'll hire you as my assistant, Sara. We'll be unstoppable together." Sara would smile quietly, always the gentler of the two. Where Maria blazed like fire, Sara was more like calm water. She worked as a nurse at the community clinic, tending to sick children and elderly patients with endless patience. People called her an angel, always so kind, always so helpful. The sisters loved each other deeply. Every Sunday after church, they'd walk to the nearby lake and sit on the old wooden dock, feet dangling over the water. Maria would talk about her latest property sale while Sara listened, occasionally offering quiet observations about the people Maria described. "You notice everything," Maria once said. "You see things about people that I completely miss." Sara had blushed. "Sometimes I wish I didn't notice so much. It would be easier." "Don't be silly," Maria laughed. "It's a gift. You understand people." Back then, it seemed like an innocent compliment. But gifts, as we'd later learn, can sometimes become curses. Their mother, Rosa Martinez, ran a small but beloved bakery. She'd wake at 4 every morning to prepare fresh bread, the smell of warm dough filling their apartment and announcing a new day. Money was tight, but they had love, laughter, and each other. "My firstborn," Rosa would say proudly about Maria. "The one who opened my womb and showed me what strength looks like." She loved both daughters equally, but Maria's vibrant personality naturally drew more attention. Sara never complained. She simply smiled her quiet smile and continued helping in the background, kneading dough, cleaning counters, keeping the books balanced. Then James Chen came to town. He arrived as the lead architect for a new community center project, and his presence caused quite a stir. Well-educated, well-spoken, and handsome in an understated way, James quickly became the most eligible bachelor in town. Every mother with a daughter suddenly found reasons to visit the construction site. But James only had eyes for one person, Maria Garcia. He'd stop by the bakery every morning, buying coffee he didn't need, lingering to chat with Maria when she came down for breakfast. He'd attend community meetings just because he knew she'd be there. He'd walk the long way home just to pass by the real estate office where she worked. Maria liked him. How could she not? He was kind, intelligent, and respectful. But she wasn't ready to settle down. "I have goals," she told Sara one evening as they prepared dinner. "I want to build my career first. Marriage can wait." Sara stirred the pot of soup, her eyes distant. "What if he doesn't wait?" Maria laughed. "Then he wasn't meant for me. The right person will wait." What Maria didn't see was the way Sara's hands tightened on the wooden spoon, or the way her sister's eyes followed James whenever he visited, or the small, almost imperceptible changes in Sara's expression when James and Maria laughed together. Deep down, in a place Sara didn't want to acknowledge, something dark was beginning to grow. It started small, just a tiny spark of envy. But envy, when fed by proximity and desire, can grow into something monstrous. 6 months after James arrived in town, everyone assumed a proposal was imminent. Rosa Martinez began saving money for a wedding. Neighbors asked when they'd hear wedding bells. Even the local priest smiled knowingly whenever he saw the couple together. But Maria remained focused on her career. She'd just landed her biggest sale yet and was being considered for a partnership at her agency. "Love is important," she told Sara, "but so is independence. I won't rush into marriage just because everyone expects it." Sarah nodded, but behind her supportive smile, thoughts swirled like a gathering storm. Then came that fateful Tuesday evening. The rain had been falling for 3 days straight. The streets turned to rivers, and everyone stayed indoors. But Maria had promised to help decorate the community center for an upcoming charity event. It was important to her. James would be there, and so would potential clients. "I'll come with you," Sarah offered quickly. Maria waved her off. "You've been on your feet all day at the clinic. Rest. I'll be back before dinner." Sarah watched from the window as her sister tied a red scarf around her neck, grabbed an umbrella, and disappeared into the gray evening. That red scarf, bright against the rain-darkened streets, was the last thing Sarah saw of her sister that night. By midnight, when Maria hadn't returned, their mother began to panic. By dawn, the entire town was searching. And it was Sarah who led the search parties, Sarah who organized the prayer vigils, Sarah who held her weeping mother and promised they'd find Maria. No one suspected the quiet, kind nurse. How could they? She was the victim's sister, after all. The truth of what happened that rainy Tuesday evening remained buried for 3 years. But now, as Maria stood in that wedding hall, alive and burning with righteous fury, the time had come for the darkness to be exposed to light. Let's return to that night. Maria had left the apartment at 6 in the evening, her red scarf bright against the gray sky. The community center was a 20-minute walk, but the rain made everything slower. She'd texted James that she might be late, then tucked her phone into her pocket and pressed forward through the storm. What Maria didn't know was that Sarah had left the apartment just 5 minutes after her, following the same rain-soaked path. Sarah had told herself she just wanted to make sure her sister arrived safely. That's what she whispered to herself as she pulled on her raincoat and slipped out the door. But deep down, in the part of her heart she refused to examine, she knew the truth. She wanted to talk to James alone. To see if maybe, just maybe, without Maria's dazzling presence overshadowing her, he might see Sarah differently. The rain was relentless. By the time Sarah reached the shortcut through the park near the lake, her clothes were soaked through. That's when she spotted her sister ahead, taking the same path. "Maria!" Sarah called out. Her sister turned, surprised. "Sarah, what are you doing out here?" "I told you to rest. I wanted to make sure you were okay," Sarah said, jogging to catch up. They stood together under the shelter of a large oak tree, rain pounding the leaves above them. "I'm fine," Maria laughed. "Though we're both soaked now. Come on, let's get to the center." But Sarah didn't move. Something in her chest felt tight, hot, suffocating. "James really likes you," she said suddenly. Maria smiled. "I know. He's a good man. Then why won't you marry him?" The question hung in the air between them. Maria studied her sister's face, seeing something there she'd never noticed before. "Sarah, what's really going on?" "Nothing. Sarah's voice cracked. "I just think you don't appreciate what you have. Everyone loves you. Everything comes so easily to you. James looks at you like you hung the moon, and you act like it's nothing special." Maria's expression softened. "Sarah, being loved doesn't mean you have everything," Sarah shouted suddenly, surprising even herself. "Career, attention, James, respect, dreams. What do I have? I'm just the quiet sister. The helper. The one nobody notices unless they need something." "That's not true." "It is." Tears mixed with rain on Sarah's face. "Do you know what it's like to always be in your shadow? To watch the man you—" She stopped abruptly, but it was too late. Maria's eyes widened with understanding. "Sarah, do you have feelings for James?" The question shattered something inside Sarah. All the years of pushing down her emotions, of smiling while her heart broke, of pretending to be happy for her sister's successes while dying inside, it all came rushing out at once. "What if I do?" Sarah whispered. "Would it matter? Would anyone care?" "You could have anyone, Maria. Why does it have to be him?" "Because I care about him," Maria said gently. Not because I'm trying to take him from you. Sarah, I didn't even know. Of course you didn't know. Sarah's voice turned bitter. You never see anything beyond your own life. You're too busy being perfect Maria, winning at everything, making everyone love you. That's not fair. Fair. Sarah laughed, but it sounded more like a sob. Nothing about this is fair. You don't even want to marry him right now, but I can't even tell him how I feel because he only sees you. Maria reached for her sister's hand. Sarah, listen to me. If James makes you happy, don't. Sarah jerked away. Don't be understanding. Don't be noble. For once in your life, just admit that you're lucky and I'm not. I won't apologize for my life, Maria said firmly. But I won't stand in your way either. If you love James, tell him. After I explain that I need more time, maybe. Maybe he'll settle for the second choice, sister. Sarah's laugh was sharp, wounded. How generous of you, Maria. Always so perfect. Always so kind. It must be exhausting being you. The sarcasm cut deeper than Sarah intended. Maria's face hardened. You know what, Sarah? You're right. You do live in my shadow. But not because I put you there. You put yourself there. You hide behind your kindness and your quiet smiles. But really, you're just a coward. The words hit Sarah like a physical blow. Something inside her snapped. What happened next occurred so fast that neither sister fully processed it. Sarah pushed Maria, hard. Maria stumbled backward, her hands instinctively grabbing Sarah's hair to steady herself. They both fell toward the muddy ground near the lake's edge. As they fell, Maria's grip tightened on Sarah's hair, ripping chunks from her scalp. Sarah screamed in pain and fury. Her hand found something hard on the ground, a broken piece of wood from the old dock. Without thinking, driven by pain and rage and years of suppressed jealousy, she swung it at Maria's head. The sound of wood connecting with skull echoed even over the rain. Maria crumpled to the ground, unconscious, blood mixing with rainwater and mud. Sarah stood there, panting, her scalp burning where hair had been torn out. She stared at her sister's motionless body, and slowly, terrifyingly, reality crashed over her like a wave. Maria, she whispered. Maria, wake up. Nothing. Maria. Louder now, panicked. Still nothing. Sarah knelt beside her sister, checking for a pulse with trembling fingers. It was there, faint, but there. Maria was alive, but unconscious, bleeding, helpless. This was the moment. The moment when Sarah could have run for help, called an ambulance, saved her sister's life. The moment when she could have chosen love over jealousy. Instead, she made a different choice. Sarah looked around the deserted park. The rain was so heavy no one would be out. No one would see. And in that moment of moral darkness, a terrible thought formed in her mind. If Maria disappeared, if she was gone, then James would be free. Then maybe, just maybe, he'd turn to Sarah for comfort. And over time, that comfort could become something more. So Sarah did the unthinkable. She dragged her unconscious sister to a more hidden area behind thick bushes. She took Maria's phone and threw it into the lake. Then she removed her own red scarf and carefully draped it near the water's edge, evidence that would later be found. Before she left, Sarah looked at her sister one last time. Maria's breathing was shallow but steady. I'm sorry, Sarah whispered. But you had everything, and I had nothing. Just once, I want to be the chosen one. Then she turned and walked away, leaving her sister unconscious in the rain, hidden behind bushes where no one would think to look. Sarah returned home and changed clothes. She burned her muddy raincoat in the apartment's incinerator. She bandaged her bleeding scalp and told herself Maria would be found soon, that someone would help her, that this wasn't really her fault because Maria had pushed her too far with those cruel words. But as the hours passed and turned into days, and then weeks, Sarah's guilt grew alongside her lies. She organized searches, knowing they'd look in the wrong places. She planted evidence, knowing it would lead nowhere. She cried real tears because part of her did love her sister and was horrified by what she'd done. But another part of her, the dark part she'd fed with years of envy, whispered that maybe this was justice. Maybe this was her turn to shine. While Sarah was organizing search parties and playing the role of grieving sister, Maria Garcia lay unconscious behind those bushes, rain continuing to pour over her broken body. By all rights, she should have died there. But fate, it seemed, had other plans. The next morning, as the storm finally cleared, an old herbalist named Elena Rodriguez was walking through the park collecting medicinal plants. Elena lived on the outskirts of town, known among locals as someone who could cure ailments with her traditional remedies. Most doctors dismissed her as a relic of the past, but Elena had helped more people than any hospital records could show. She was searching for a particular type of moss when she spotted something unusual behind the bushes. A hand, pale and still, partially covered by leaves and mud. "Madre de Dios," Elena whispered, rushing over. When she saw Maria's face, bruised and bloody, she initially thought she'd found a corpse. But then she noticed the faint rise and fall of the young woman's chest. Elena was old but strong. She'd carried water buckets and herbal supplies through these woods for 70 years. She managed to hoist Maria onto her back and carry her to her small cottage at the forest's edge. For the next 2 weeks, Maria hovered between life and death. Elena cleaned her wounds with herbal solutions, fed her through a tube made from hollow reeds, and kept her warm beside a small fire. The head wound was severe. Elena could tell by the swelling and the young woman's inability to wake. She applied poultices of special leaves and roots, generations-old remedies passed down from her grandmother. "Come back," Elena would whisper as she worked. "Whatever darkness tried to take you, fight it. Come back to the light." On the 15th day, Maria's eyes finally opened. But when Elena asked her name, Maria just stared blankly. The trauma had stolen her memories. "Who am I?" Maria asked, her voice raspy from disuse. "That," Elena said gently, "is what we need to discover." For months, Maria lived with Elena in that cottage, healing slowly. Her body recovered faster than her mind. The scalp wounds where Sarah had torn her hair left permanent scars, and her hair grew back unevenly, patchy and damaged. Elena taught her to work with herbs, to identify plants, to grind remedies. The physical work seemed to help Maria's mind gradually reassemble itself. Memories came back in fragments, a bakery's smell, a sister's laugh, rain on a red scarf. But they were just pieces. She couldn't connect them into a coherent story. Then, about 8 months after Elena found her, Maria was in town, carefully disguised in Elena's old clothes and headscarf, when she saw a poster stapled to a telephone pole. "Missing. Maria Garcia." The photo on the poster was her face. Everything came flooding back in a rush so powerful she had to sit down on the sidewalk. The bakery. Her mother. Sarah. The argument by the lake. The pushing, the falling, the pain. James. Everything. She rushed back to Elena's cottage, tears streaming down her face. "I remember," she gasped. "I remember everything. My sister. She left me there. She left me to die." Elena held her as she sobbed. When Maria finally calmed, the old woman spoke seriously. "What will you do now?" "I have to go back," Maria said. "I have to tell everyone what happened." "Are you sure?" Elena asked. "The world thinks you're dead. Sometimes, that can be a gift. You could start over somewhere new." But Maria shook her head. "My mother thinks she lost her daughter. My friends think I'm gone. And Sarah," her voice hardened. "Sarah is living my life, built on the lie of my disappearance. I can't let that stand." "Then we must be smart," Elena said. "If we reveal you too soon, Sarah will create another story. We need proof." Over the next several months, Elena helped Maria investigate her own case. They discovered that Sarah had become close to James, comforting him in his grief. They learned that Sarah had started wearing elaborate wigs to hide her scarred scalp. They found out about the engagement. Maria wanted to rush in immediately and expose the truth, But Elena counseled patience. Liars trap themselves eventually, the old woman said. We just need to wait for the right moment. That moment came when Maria learned about the wedding date. It's time, she told Elena. The old woman nodded. Then go reveal the truth. But be careful. A cornered liar is dangerous. Elena had one more gift for Maria. A beautiful yellow dress she'd been saving for a special occasion. Yellow is the color of resurrection, she said. Wear it when you rise from the dead. On the morning of the wedding, Maria prepared herself carefully. She rehearsed what she would say, how she would stand, what she would reveal. Her scarred scalp was hidden beneath a simple covering, but she was ready to show the world if necessary. The hardest part was seeing her mother again through the church window before the ceremony. Rosa Martinez had aged dramatically, her hair now completely gray, her face lined with permanent grief. Maria had to physically restrain herself from running to her mother immediately. Wait, she whispered to herself. Do this right. She watched the ceremony begin. She saw Sarah, radiant in her wedding gown, her elaborate hairpiece perfect and untouchable. She saw James, looking handsome but somehow sad, as if something in his heart knew this wasn't quite right. When the officiant asked Sarah if she would take James as her husband, Maria knew it was time. She threw open the doors. The gasps, the shock, the chaos, it was all exactly as she'd imagined. But what Maria hadn't expected was how it would feel to see her sister again, to see the fear in Sarah's eyes, to witness the facade finally crumbling. Standing there in the doorway, Maria felt a complex mixture of emotions. Anger, yes. Betrayal, absolutely. But also sadness for the sister she'd once loved, the sister who'd let jealousy turn her into something monstrous. But this wasn't just about revenge. This was about truth. This was about her mother's right to know her daughter was alive. This was about James deserving to know whom he was really marrying. This was about Maria reclaiming her life. As she walked down that aisle, each step deliberate and sure, Maria felt like she was walking toward her own resurrection. She'd survived death, amnesia, and betrayal. Now she would survive the truth. And when she finally spoke, her voice carried the weight of everything she'd endured. It's time. The truth must be told. The church hall remained frozen in shocked silence as Maria stood before the congregation, a ghost made flesh. Every eye darted between her and Sarah, trying to reconcile the impossible, that the missing woman stood alive while her sister, the bride, trembled at the altar. Sarah's carefully applied makeup began to run with tears. Her hands shook so violently that James had to steady her. But when he touched her arm, she flinched as if burned by guilt. Tell them, Maria said, her voice strong despite the tears glistening in her eyes. Tell them what you did, Sarah. Or should I? I thought you were dead, Sarah stammered. Maria, I swear I thought. You thought you'd killed me, Maria interrupted. And instead of getting help, you hid my body and walked away. You threw my phone in the lake. You planted your scarf to mislead the search. You let our mother cry herself to sleep every night for 3 years while you knew exactly what happened to me. Rosa Martinez, who had been sitting in stunned silence, suddenly stood up. Maria, she whispered, as if afraid that speaking too loudly would make the vision disappear. My daughter. My Maria. Maria's composure cracked. She rushed past Sarah and fell into her mother's arms. Both women sobbed, Rosa from overwhelming joy mixed with confusion, Maria from finally being home. You're alive, Rosa kept repeating, touching Maria's face as if to confirm she was real. You're alive, my baby. You're alive. James stood at the altar, looking between the two sisters with growing horror as the truth crystallized. Sarah, he said quietly, tell me Maria is lying. Tell me this isn't true. But Sarah couldn't speak. She collapsed into the chair behind her, her elaborate hairpiece slightly askew from her trembling. Maria gently extracted herself from her mother's embrace and turned to face the crowd. I need to tell you all what really happened, she said. Not for revenge, but because the truth deserves to be spoken. She told them everything. The argument by the lake. Sarah's confession of jealousy. The fight. The moment of violence. Waking up in Elena's cottage with no memory. The slow, painful journey of recovery and remembering. As she spoke, she slowly removed the covering from her head, revealing her scarred scalp, patches of uneven hair growth and the unmistakable marks of trauma. "These are the scars from where Sarah grabbed my hair as we fell," Maria explained. "When I finally remembered everything, I understood why Sarah started wearing wigs. She has matching scars. Evidence of what she did." All eyes turned to Sarah. "Show them," Maria said gently but firmly. "Show them your scalp, Sarah. Show them the truth." "No," Sarah whispered. "Show them," Maria repeated. James knelt beside Sarah. "Please," he said softly. "If there's any chance of understanding this, I need to see the truth." With trembling hands, Sarah slowly reached up and removed her elaborate hairpiece. Underneath, her scalp told its own story. Scarred, patchy, damaged from that night by the lake and from the infection that followed because she'd been too afraid to seek medical help. The congregation erupted in shocked whispers. Rosa Martinez sank back into her pew, one hand covering her mouth. "Why?" James asked, his voice breaking. "Sarah, why would you do this?" Sarah's tears fell freely now, her beautiful makeup completely ruined. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely audible. "Because I loved you," she whispered. "Because I wanted what Maria had. Because for once in my life, I wanted to be the chosen one." She looked at Maria. "I didn't mean to hurt you. When we fought, when you fell, it all happened so fast. And then when I saw you lying there, I panicked. I thought you were dying, and I thought if you were gone, maybe finally someone would see me. Maybe you would see me, James. So you left her there," James said, horror and disgust mixing in his voice. "You left your own sister to die so you could take her place." "I'm sorry," Sarah sobbed. "I'm so sorry. I've lived with the guilt every single day. Every time I looked at you, every time I tried on my wedding dress, every time Mama talked about how happy she was, the guilt was eating me alive. I wanted to confess so many times, but I was too afraid." Maria approached her sister slowly. Sarah looked up, fear and hope warring in her expression. Fear of judgment, hope for forgiveness. "You almost killed me," Maria said quietly. "You stole 3 years of my life. You broke our mother's heart. You lied to a good man and manipulated his grief." She paused. "But you're still my sister." "Maria," Sarah reached out, but Maria stepped back. "I can forgive you eventually," Maria continued. "But that doesn't mean there are no consequences. What you did was a crime, Sarah. You can't make this right with just an apology." As if on cue, the sound of sirens grew louder outside. Someone in the congregation had called the police while Maria told her story. "I know," Sarah whispered. "I know I need to face what I've done." When the police entered the church, Sarah stood up voluntarily. She looked at James one last time. "I did love you," she said. "That part was real. Even though everything else was a lie, my feelings for you were real." James said nothing. He just turned away. As the officers led Sarah out of the church, she paused at the doorway and looked back at Maria. "I hope someday you can really forgive me. Not because I deserve it, but because you deserve peace." Then she was gone. The weeks that followed were a whirlwind. Sarah was charged with attempted murder, evidence tampering, and filing false reports. The trial was swift. She pleaded guilty to all charges. The judge, while acknowledging her genuine remorse, sentenced her to 7 years in prison with the possibility of parole after 5. Maria testified at the trial. When asked if she hated her sister, she said something that surprised everyone. "I don't hate her. I pity her. Jealousy turned her into someone she never wanted to be. I hope she finds peace and forgiveness, for herself, not just from me." Rosa Martinez visited both daughters, Maria in her newly rented apartment, Sarah in prison. The old woman's heart was broken in a different way now, torn between relief and grief. "How do I love both of you when one tried to kill the other?" she asked Maria one day. "The same way you always have," Maria replied. "Sarah made terrible choices, but she's still your daughter. Love doesn't mean excusing what she did. It means hoping she becomes better." As for James, he needed time to process everything. The woman he'd planned to marry had built their entire relationship on lies and manipulation. The woman he'd originally loved was back from the dead. "I don't expect anything from you," Maria told him when they finally sat down to talk, 3 months after the failed wedding. "What Sarah did wasn't your fault. You were lied to, just like everyone else." "I keep thinking I should have seen it," James said. "Some sign that something was wrong." "Sarah was good at hiding," Maria replied. "She'd been hiding her true feelings for years. We all missed it." They talked for hours that day, about the past, about grief, about the strange journey that had brought them both to this moment. Eventually, James asked the question that had been weighing on him. "Do you think we could start over? Not picking up where we left off, but truly starting fresh?" Maria considered carefully. "I'm not the same person I was 3 years ago," she said. "I've changed. And so have you." "I know," James said. "Maybe that's okay. Maybe we need to get to know each other again, as the people we are now, not the people we were." Maria smiled, a genuine, warm smile. "I'd like that." 1 year later, the same church hall that had witnessed such shocking drama hosted a very different ceremony. This time, it was simpler, quieter, with only close friends and family. Maria and James stood at the altar, but this time without secrets, without lies, without anyone's shadow falling between them. Maria wore her scars openly, her hair growing back naturally, no wigs to hide behind. She'd learned that beauty wasn't about perfection, it was about authenticity. Rosa Martinez sat in the front row, tears of genuine joy streaming down her face. Beside her was an empty seat, a space held for the daughter who couldn't be there but whom they both still loved despite everything. Elena Rodriguez, the herbalist who'd saved Maria's life, stood as Maria's maid of honor. "From death to life, from darkness to light," the old woman whispered as the ceremony began. "This is how stories should end." The officiant, a different one this time, smiled warmly at the couple. "Do you, Maria Garcia, take James Chen to be your lawfully wedded husband?" Maria looked into James's eyes and saw not the ghost of who she used to be, but acceptance of who she'd become. "I do," she said clearly, her voice strong and sure. "And do you, James Chen, take Maria Garcia to be your lawfully wedded wife?" James squeezed her hands gently. "I do. Today and always." When they kissed, the small gathering erupted in genuine applause. There were no whispers of scandal, no hidden secrets, no shadows lurking in corners. Just love, earned through honesty and patience. At the reception afterward, Maria raised her glass to make a toast. "I want to thank everyone here for supporting us through the strangest journey 2 people could take to the altar," she said with a slight laugh. "I also want to say something about my sister." The room grew quiet. "Sarah made terrible choices driven by jealousy and pain. But I've learned that carrying hatred is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So I've chosen to forgive her, not because she deserves it, but because I deserve peace." Maria paused, emotion thickening her voice. "I hope that wherever she is, she's finding her own path to peace." Rosa reached over and squeezed her daughter's hand, tears streaming down her face. In a prison 200 miles away, Sarah Martinez sat in the common area, watching a small television. An inmate doing community service was flipping through channels when she paused on a local news segment. And in a heartwarming conclusion to a story that shocked the community 3 years ago, Maria Garcia married architect James Chen today in an intimate ceremony. Sarah's breath caught as footage showed Maria and James leaving the church, smiling, showered with flower petals. Maria looked radiant, not because of makeup or elaborate styling, but because of genuine happiness. The other inmates glanced at Sarah, knowing her story. Everyone in the facility knew about the nurse who tried to kill her sister for love. "You okay?" one woman asked, not unkindly. Sarah nodded slowly, wiping tears from her eyes. "Yeah," she whispered. I think I'm happy for her." And she meant it. Months of therapy, of facing what she'd done, of working through the jealousy and self-hatred that had driven her choices, it was finally bearing fruit. She was learning to be happy for someone else's joy without feeling diminished by it. "She looks beautiful," Sarah said softly to the television, even though no one could hear her. "I'm sorry, Maria. I'm so sorry for everything. But I'm glad you found your happiness." It wasn't redemption yet. Sarah had years of prison time ahead of her, years of working to become someone who could forgive herself. But it was a start. 5 years passed. Sarah was released on parole, having served her time with exemplary behavior. She'd completed every therapy program available, earned her GED, and trained as a counselor for other inmates struggling with destructive jealousy. On her first day of freedom, she stood outside the prison gates, uncertain where to go. She'd lost her nursing license. Most of her friends had abandoned her. She had nothing but a small bag of belongings and a heart full of regret. A car pulled up to the curb. The window rolled down, and Sarah's breath caught. It was her mother. "Mama," Sarah whispered. Rosa Martinez stepped out of the car. She looked older, more frail, but her eyes held the same love they'd always had, complicated now, wounded, but still love. "You're my daughter," Rosa said simply. "That doesn't change just because you did something terrible. Come. Let's go home." They embraced on the sidewalk, both crying. Sarah had expected rejection, anger, coldness. Instead, she found the one thing she'd never truly understood until she lost it: unconditional love. "Maria?" Sarah asked hesitantly as they got in the car. "She knows you're being released today," Rosa said carefully. "She's not ready to see you yet. Maybe someday, but not yet." Sarah nodded, accepting this. "I understand. Tell her I'm grateful she's alive and happy. Tell her I'm going to spend the rest of my life becoming someone worthy of eventually asking for her forgiveness." 3 more years passed. Sarah rebuilt her life slowly, humbly. She worked at a bakery, not her mother's, but a small shop on the other side of town. She attended therapy weekly. She volunteered at a women's shelter, helping others trapped in cycles of jealousy and destructive behavior. She didn't wear wigs anymore. Her scars were visible, and she let them be. They were part of her story, reminders of the worst version of herself, reminders she needed to never forget. One Saturday afternoon, Sarah was arranging fresh bread in the display case when the bell above the door chimed. She looked up and froze. Maria stood in the doorway. They stared at each other for a long moment. Maria looked different, older, more mature, but peaceful. Happy. She was carrying a small child on her hip, a beautiful girl with dark curls and curious eyes. "Hi, Sarah," Maria said softly. "Hi," Sarah breathed, her hands trembling. You have a daughter." "This is Sophia," Maria said, kissing the child's head. "She just turned 2. Sarah's eyes filled with tears. "She's beautiful. You look so happy, Maria." "I am," Maria said. "It took time, but I am." Another long pause. Then Maria spoke again. "I'm not here to rehash the past. I'm not here to make you feel worse than you already do. I wanted you to know that I've forgiven you. Truly forgiven you. Not because you've earned it or because enough time has passed, but because holding on to that anger was poisoning my happiness. So I let it go." Sarah's tears fell freely now. "I don't deserve your forgiveness." "No," Maria agreed gently. "You don't. But I'm not giving it to you for your sake. I'm giving it to you for mine. And maybe a little bit for her." She gestured to her daughter. "I want Sophia to grow up understanding that forgiveness is possible even after the worst betrayals. That people can change. That we're all more than the worst thing we've ever done." Thank you, Sarah whispered. I've spent every day trying to become someone better. Someone who would never hurt anyone out of jealousy again. Maria nodded. Mama says you're doing good work at the shelter. I'm trying to help people avoid making my mistakes. That's good, Maria said. Then, after a pause, maybe someday we can have coffee. Not now. I'm not ready for that yet. But someday. Because you're still my sister, Sarah. What you did was unforgivable, but you're still my sister. Sarah nodded, unable to speak through her tears. Maria turned to leave, then paused at the door. Oh, and Sarah? Stop punishing yourself quite so much. You went to prison. You lost 5 years of your life. You're doing the work to change. That's enough. You're allowed to be happy too, eventually. Then she was gone, the bell chiming softly as the door closed. Sarah stood in the empty bakery, tears streaming down her face, but for the first time in 8 years, they were tears of hope instead of despair. Moral lessons. Jealousy is a poison that destroys from within. Sarah's envy didn't hurt Maria initially. It destroyed Sarah first, turning her into someone capable of terrible things. You can't build genuine happiness on lies and betrayal. Even if Sarah's plan had worked and Maria had never returned, Sarah would have lived with guilt and fear forever. True happiness requires truth. Forgiveness isn't about excusing wrong behavior. It's about freeing yourself from hatred's prison. Maria forgave Sarah not because what Sarah did was okay, but because carrying that hatred was hurting Maria's own peace. People are more than their worst moments. Sarah did something horrible, but she also did the hard work of becoming better. Redemption is possible for those willing to do the work. Love and jealousy cannot coexist. If you truly love someone, you want their happiness even when it doesn't include you. Sarah's love for James was actually obsession rooted in envy. Real love would have celebrated Maria's relationship rather than destroyed it. Thank you so much for watching this incredible 5-chapter journey with us. If this story moved you, taught you something, or made you think differently about jealousy, forgiveness, and redemption, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel. Share this story with someone who needs to hear its message. Drop a comment below telling us what you learned from Sarah and Maria's story. We read every single one. And don't forget to turn on notifications so you never miss our next powerful story. Remember, you are more than your worst moment, and it's never too late to choose to become better. See you in the next video, beautiful souls.